So without further ado, I want to introduce, well, first I want to thank the Flying Scott Sailing Association for helping us promote this event. Without the 60+ years, 62 years of volunteers that have associated themselves with the Flying Scott Sailing Association, that have hosted nationals, hosted regattas, countless volunteers, then we wouldn't be in business, and we wouldn't be able to join you all on the, out on the water and see so many people enjoy their Flying Scots around the nation. So it's thanks to the many volunteers out there, the Flying Scott Sailing Association, the volunteers involved with that organization. I mean, they've gone so far as to have a boat raffle for us in these trying times, uncertain times. We're going to come out of this thing here and, I guess the end of April by the sounds of it, with 2 new boat orders for 2 lucky winners of the Flying Scott Sailing Association sweepstakes raffle. They're raffling off 2 new boats and suits of sails, a whole bunch of other high value prizes. If you've not already bought your raffle tickets, after this meeting, go over to fssa.com, scroll down a little bit, you'll see the information there. You can buy your tickets online or via email, and just can't thank them enough. And without further ado, Eric Bussell is going to tell us about his success with fleet building and the Clinton Lake Sailing Association. He has a presentation prepared. Eric has talked at a number of events, U.S. sailing events, on their success fleet building. And I think everybody's going to really enjoy hearing from him and some of his unique ideas that he and the Clinton Lake Sailing Association have been able to execute.
Well, thank you, Tyler. Thank you, everybody, for your interest in this topic. We have, 40 some people on here. This is amazing. Plus, we're going to record this and get this out there. So if you hear things or get some ideas and want to share them with your club or with your fleet, so we will make that link available. The way I understand this is you want to ask me questions, and I do have slides here that I can reference, or would you rather me just make a straight presentation?
I would say you go for it, and I'll if I have any questions, I'll chime in, or at the end I'll hit back any questions that didn't get answered. But I know I'm looking forward to your presentation, so I'll get out of the way.
Okay, well, I'll start here in the first thing I want to do is give a little background on when I started. I started about 10 years ago with my dad. We joined Clinton Lake largely because of the Flying Scott fleet. It was a team there that was established. We wanted to be part of the team. We wanted to grow something, and we wanted to get better. Now, that was a long time ago, and trying to remember details, and we weren't really keeping specific notes, but we remember there was about 7 boats there at the time, which seemed like a lot and is a lot. And right about the time that I got there, everyone seemed to leave. We thought people there didn't like us or something, because it's just bad luck. As soon as we got there, there's like 3 or 4 boats that left, and they all sold their boats out of state and out of the country in some situations. So I kind of got there and said, what the heck just happened? So it was also at a time where we couldn't pay people to come to the lake, it seemed like, and just seemed very frustrating and almost hopeless at some point. So we really put our heads together. But before we get into some details of what we did, I really want to stress why I think people are attracted to Fleet 135 and other successful fleet builders that I see. And we have a great boat. We have great people. But I think it's the mentorship aspect of the people that I think really drives people to wanting to be a part of our group. We underestimate, but people get access to Fleet Captain Rod and Ben Williams and Deb Aronson and myself and Craig and Chris and all those people in our fleet, because you have a team of people there to help you when you want to pick out the right boat and don't buy a lemon. You want to make sure that you know how to rig it and tune it. All those things seem like really simple things to us, but they're very overwhelming to the person who's looking at this new hobby and thinking, can I do this? And what's it going to take for me to do this? And what if I run into a challenge? So I really think that is the key thing to a fleet building formula is making ourselves attractive and offering that. And we do that when we follow any type of fleet building formula. And I just think that is often overlooked. Now, the first thing, we're talking a lot about curves lately, and putting it into the context of curves. And if you look back, you can see these numbers in 2010 or 2011 might not be hyper accurate, but when my dad and I joined Fleet 135, Ben Williams and Deb Aronson were there, and most of you may know them. And the reason why you know them is because quite frankly, they're rock stars. What I saw in that fleet was Ben and Deb doing all the right things. Didn't know anything that was going on or how things worked, but I saw something special in those two especially. They were traveling around to regattas. They were making friends all over the country. They were bringing back their sailing skills and their perspective back to the fleet. And when things were starting to get hopeless, I looked at them and I appreciated that sticking with them and working with them, we were going to figure things out together. So while people say my name a lot when you're talking about fleet building, and I'm the one talking here, I really have to give credit to those two people, because not just in terms of the fleet building and the success that you see here that they really inspired. If you look at the Midwest District and the enthusiasm and a lot of the energy, that is largely created because they would travel around and help build it up. And I really think when you talk about Fleet 135 and the success, not talking about Ben Williams and Deb Aronson first and foremost, it would be wrong. So I really want to emphasize that they are my mentors, and their impact on our class and the Midwest District and our fleet and our club have been transformational. So they just inspired me. That's just the simplest way to put it. But when we're talking about our fleet specifically and how we were looking at, you can see our curve was very, I would say it looks like a lot of other curves that are going on right now or have been happening over the past many years. We have people who are leaving the fleet, they're selling their boats, and we don't have enough people to fill those spaces. And those boats are leaving our fleets and leaving our clubs and never coming back. And it's something that we faced. And so when we started this fleet building concept, the results speak for themselves. We went from about 4 or 5 active boats to now we have 18 and expected to maybe surpass 20 active boat owners in our fleet. We have several people now with multiple boats. We have people who live in Florida. Michelle and Mark Taylor are there. They joined our club. We have people in Wisconsin and Minnesota. We're not counting those people in terms of boat owners, even though we love them and we like them a lot. They're just not active, involved in the fleet development and the day-to-day sailing. So we're not counting them to keep these numbers conservative, and we're very happy with the direction that we're going. So a couple of the things that we do that are unique that might work for your club, they might not, but fundamentally with our fleet building formula, we want to develop sailors, we want to create space, and we want to create pathways and capacity so that people can sail and they can develop as sailors. And our primary program for doing that is Casual Wednesdays, or our Wednesday night racing program. And while many people have, many clubs have beer can racing, not a lot of clubs have the coordinated sailing approach that we do. We approach it so that it's as easy to get on a sailboat on a Wednesday night at CLSA as it is to get a tee time at a golf course. All you have to do is RSVP and show up, and our fleet captain Rod will take those names, put people together based on their expertise, and we'll put someone who's more experienced with someone who's lesser experienced, and then we'll do boat assignments on Wednesdays. It's really simple, and it takes a little bit of work. It's not an overwhelming amount of work, but we put people together so that they don't have to stop what they're doing to figure out who they're going to sail with or find crew or any of that. And it's just been really a game changer in approaching it that way by making it so simple. And I just think it's something that everyone should consider if they have the ability, even if you're racing on Sundays, and maybe every once in a while you might want to try a casual day where you're mixing and matching people and you're putting people with different people with different people. That's really good from a social perspective. It's a good from a learning and development perspective, and it's just been fantastic for us. So what we've done is we started this when we had 5 or 6 active boats, and we started this. We bought a couple extra boats, and I'll talk about the fleet development boat concept so that we can create this space. And it's grown from 3 to 4 boats on the line on a Wednesday night to 8 to 12 boats on the line in less than 10 years with 40 or 50 active sailors. So it's very attractive. And I think those numbers don't even tell the whole story, because we had people from my club listening in. The Thistle fleet noticed what we were doing, and they did it. And we couldn't accommodate all the people that we were attracting through this program. So the Thistle fleet started, and thankfully they did, because now all these extra people have a place to sail as well, as we're trying to keep up with all the demand. Our problems went from we couldn't pay people to come out to the club to where we have to struggle to find room to put everybody. It's a great problem to have, I promise you. I hope you can see this, but the fleet development boat concept is nothing new. People have been doing this for a long time, and you're starting to see success stories in FSSA magazine, Scots and Water, I should say, where people are adding capacity by getting a club boat or getting a fleet boat or buying an extra boat, and you can tell it's making a noticeable impact on their fleet and their fleet development. And what we did is we just decided, it's like, well, do we give up, or do we just hope they're going to come, or do we buy an extra boat, or do we buy an extra couple boats and use that as our capacity so that people could get into them and start sailing them and make it attractive that way. And what happens is people start sailing them, they fall in love with the boat. That boat happens to be for sale. They buy the boat, and now we have another boat in our fleet with the room and the capacity, and those people need crew. So we need to bring in more people and start developing crew, and that life cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats. Some really cool things, that since these boats are privately owned instead of club owned, which is somewhat unique, and what I've seen out there, is that our club has worked with us, and because our club and our board has seen the value that we bring to the club. The number of storage customers out there is growing, the number of members are growing, the number of active sailors on the water is growing impressively. So our club is supporting us. They're offering us free storage. At least they're not making money off of it, but they're offering storage for these privately owned secondary development boats that are used specifically for the growth and development for the club, which means that it really only costs somebody who buys a Flying Scot a couple $100 to insure it, and they buy a boat, they let people use it for a year or two, they sell it, they get all their money back, and it really only costs you a few $100. And it's really not over the top expensive if you think of it that way. Now, granted, not a lot of people can just loan the fleet a few $1,000s, but there are people who can, and it's not impossible. It's not impossible to put your money together and go in on a boat or something creative like that. But one thing that's amazing about Flying Scots, because of their popularity, is they hold their value exceptionally well, and it could even be a moneymaker if you wanted to go about it like that. So what we found is it's not nearly as expensive as we initially thought it might be, because those boats are attractive, and we're creating demand, and there's people who just continue to want to buy these boats. So moving on, the one other challenge of this is that we're often participating in commercial activities in terms of giving lessons and using our boats to support free lesson programs or not free lesson programs. And in order to do that, we need commercial level insurance from our club and support, even though they're privately owned boats, which creates a little bit of a challenge. So our club has stepped up, and we're considering very, very quickly, we hope to get approval so that starting this year, these privately owned development boats are covered by the club insurance policy, so that we that our boats, we don't void our personal insurance coverage. And I'll talk about that in a little bit if you're interested. But it's a big challenge and a big something we had to overcome, and as we developed this program. And then another big thing that's, I think, is crucial to our success with these fleet development boats is for the first 5 boats that left our club, we realized it's really hard to get new ones back. It takes a lot of time to go out and find them, fix them up, bring them back, drive them from across the country. So we've got this unofficial policy where we will no longer sell Flying Scots outside of our club, and we work with the owners who we sell them to agree to sell them back to us, or try and do what they can to keep them within the club, and they're bought in. So very few Flying Scots are leaving Clinton Lake now because we've instilled that notion in everybody's minds. So the fleet development boat is something that's critical. I mentioned in the email to Tyler, which he shared with everybody through FSSA, that we discourage private or club-owned boats in our model, and that's because it's specific to us. I want to stress that there's no one-size-fits-all model to these fleet building stuff. So I want to be careful in how you read that, because I wasn't sure it was going to be spread verbatim, but I knew I'd get a chance to explain that one. But I do see examples of club-owned boats that are being put to good use. One thing I want to stress with the fleet development boats, and we're making boats available, we're not just saying, hey, come sail our boats whenever you want to. There's an important aspect about our formula that we are giving absolute support to boat owners in our fleet. And that includes trying to find crew and trying to place crew with them. It doesn't make a lot of sense if we allow people to sail a loaner boat anytime they want to, and then someone pays $3,000 or $4,000 or more dollars for a boat, and then they can't find crew, and then someone grabs a friend and hops in one of the free boats. It's a conflict of that interest. Otherwise, they just might want to say, why am I going to spend that much money and just hop in one of those loaner boats? So we're very careful, and we're always adjusting the dials in terms of trying to manage supply and demand. Sometimes we need more skippers, sometimes we need more crew, but we haven't had any problem with freeloaders. We haven't had any problem taking advantage of us. It's naturally created enough demand to where people want to buy their boats without having to play games or anything like that. We're very open in our priorities. So this fleet development boat model has been completely fantastic for us. So fleet development boats. So the commercial insurance coverage portion, I don't want to talk about insurance at length because it's really, really boring. But I mentioned that we had that insurance challenge. CLSA uses the Gowrie Group, which is the U.S. Sailing Bergie program, which a lot of clubs use. I think a lot of, I wouldn't know the percentage of clubs that use it, but anytime that we are allowing someone to be on our boat and they paid for the privilege, we're engaging in a commercial activity. So if someone pays to go participate in a first sale program and spends $50 to come sail on your boat, and then a private Flying Scot owner says, yeah, I'll take that first sailor for a ride, and something happens to him, well, the Gowrie Group isn't going to cover that incident. And then you're going to call your private insurance person, and they may not cover that incident, and that's a problem. So you're talking about supporting free sailing, or not free, but sailing lessons at your club, and learn to sail courses and classes at your club. And we have a workaround at CLSA that we have to switch boats with people. So let's say Ben Williams and myself are going to support the Learn to Sail class at Clinton Lake with our Flying Scots. We can't be sailing on our own boats. We would have to switch boats so that it could then be covered under the CLSA insurance program. So that's a big discussion when we're talking about with the Flying Scot Foundation right now, in terms of fleets wanting to develop fleet building models that may require people to pay into them and create that commercial situation. So the commercial insurance thing is certainly something that we want to discuss. So that really covers the real basics of it, and I'm counting on you to have questions so that we can dig in deeper.
So the question that comes to my mind as we start to talk about insurance, it's an important conversation, but like you said, maybe a boring one. So paint us a picture as to why we should start fleets and deal with insurance? What is the reward for you, Eric?
The reward is getting the sale with a lot more friends and having a lot more fun. That's the reward of all this work, risk, energy, cost, and everything else. But no matter how much I love sailing, I'm not going to risk my house and my family and my lifestyle and other things so that I can support the growth of my club. I'm going to be honest with you. So, but I think we can still do those things and protect ourselves. And in some clubs who may already have insurance that will cover that, and it's just a matter of checking with it. So in our club, that was not the case. So we have to come up with this creative workaround. But yeah, the reward of fleet building and doing all these things is it's a lot more fun to sail when you're sailing with more boats on the water and hanging out with a lot more friends on shore. It's just worth it to me.
I was, my ears perked up when you were talking about the importance of the traveling aspect as a kind of as a group. And this is definitely something too, when we open up to the panelists, I would love to get Michael and the Dallas fleets take on this as well, because those guys, they show up. I know just even for the women's NACs here that we're planning, we have quite a few boats coming all the way from Dallas to Deep Creek. And so can you just expound a little bit more on that and how you kind of encourage that within your fleet, to get people to get their boats out of the water and get them on the trailers and get them to other places? Well,
I can tell you that every good idea that I've had has come from another club. It's and I'm not saying that we just had a little club. We had this little fleet, and so I would travel to Ephraim and I would see all these cool things that they're doing, and in fact, one of the coolest ideas that we implemented was to develop a partner with the community sailing, or not community sailing, the community colleges, their adult education programs. And that idea came from me being at the 2012 North American Championships and the Flying Scot Sailing Association putting on a fleet building clinic somewhat like this. And I wasn't attending it, but I happened to have to go to the restroom, and I was walking through that meeting and I heard someone say, we can partner with community colleges and use their community catalogs to market sailing. I said, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. and lo and behold, it's been transformational for the Clinton Lake Sailing Association. We started in 2013, and then the club started another one with a neighboring college in 2014. And together, the outreach that we've gotten from those catalogs and the inflow of new members and new energy has been tremendous. And that came from traveling. And that's just one of many examples. If I would have taken a notebook like Tyler does and written everything down, I'd have a really great list of examples. But it's every single time you go to a club, you see what they're doing. You see moraine sailing clubs, a lot like the Clinton Lake Sailing Association. So I can see how they're doing things and why they're doing things and what's working for them and what's not, and how they design their sail programs, especially if they're using Flying Scot and what's. Moraine's one of my favorite clubs, by the way, when it comes to that. So so you get to learn from all these clubs and make new friends and get make all these friends who are willing to help you when you have questions. It's great.
I know for me, I mean, I obviously love my friends, especially in this class, because it's just such a great group of people. But for me, since I was a young kid growing up sailing, it's always been about boats on the line. And the Scott has so many boats on the line, and the fleets in this class are big. I mean, we still get 30 boats consistently, 20 to 40 at Deep Creek Lake, because it's such a great fleet boat. And I'm just in seventh heaven getting to race against so many great people and enjoy, their camaraderie on shore. So I want to open up, open up to our panelists, and then we'll open up to discussion, all out discussion, everybody on the call.
One second, real quick before we do that. Michael posted a good question, just circling back onto the insurance liability kind of side of things. What about, do you guys do waivers, or how do you handle that kind of side of it?
When people sign up through the sign up process, there's a waiver process that they do sign. So yes, we do. but the waiver isn't probably going to help you too much, I'm told, in Illinois. And I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you whether that's true or not, but
Right.
I've been told that waivers aren't great depending on where you're at and shouldn't be relied on. And yet you should have good insurance and not count on that waiver no matter what.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and that's great to be careful. So while we're on the topic, I did have a question here about old abandoned boats. I know a lot of clubs around the nation struggle with boats being abandoned at their club. So what has been your experience? And I know one guy, he just sent the owners 2 letters, and the boats have been sitting for so long at that point that, and I guess a few years, that he didn't take no for an answer. He kind of was shot first and asked questions later. He just hauled them all away to the dump. I know it's sad, but the landfill here will take boats for $30. And I'm talking about old abandoned boats that are past repair, obviously. So what has been your experience on getting rid of abandoned boats at your club?
No real experience. When I first came to CLSA, they had made the mistake of accepting pretty much any boat that would be donated to them. And that created a stockpile of old rundown boats that no one really wanted to sail. So we had to auction them off for essentially free to raise a little bit of money for our club. So we tried basically auctioning them for free. That's my only experience that I have with abandoned boats or dilapidated boats. But we had accepted those as donations. We're not talking about boats that people have just abandoned. We have a marina next to us who deals with that a lot more than we do because they've handled the storage. I'm not going to get into the details of our storage arrangements and history, but the bottom line is our experience is minimal. And within our fleet and within our club, the boats that are parked are actively sailed, and we don't have that problem of people parking their boats there and just leaving them and storing them there.
I'm on a Zoom.
And then one other question I did have for you, and you kind of touched on it, I think, when you were talking about the partnering with the community college. But you know, a lot of times we'll see bigger fleets just based purely on the population of the area of where they are. But CLSA is kind of interesting because it's kind of a little bit more remote, really, when you think about the actual location of the club. So how do you you know, and the setup's interesting, you know, at Clinton as well, because, you know, like for the Glow, everybody pitches the tents and everything. You don't have that, you know, big clubhouse kind of thing. And so how do you encourage people to come, you know, drive in and make that travel and establish the fun factor when you might not have all of the big yacht club amenities that a lot of clubs have?
Fun factor we've always had long before, but the problem is no matter how much fun you have, they're not going to get to enjoy it if you can't get people out there and show them. So hands down, the game changer for us has been Facebook. I've initially thought that the community college catalogs played a huge role, and maybe they did initially in changing our trajectory. But about that same time, that's when Facebook came about, and we were starting to do Facebook advertising. And I think it's something to say, I'm proud to say we've perfected. We spend about $50 over the years. I've calculated in everything that we've done and bring people in through our free sailing lesson program and promoting it through Facebook. It costs us about $50 in advertising to convert all of these leads that we get out there into a person who is going to go try sailing, get on a boat, come hang out with us, and then join the club and then come keep sailing with us. $50 per person. We get a lot more than that from our club dues, so we should keep doing that, and that's the plan. So our problem now is capacity to find place to people instead of finding people to put in that capacity. So it's been a great change of problems. So I can actually show people how to do that real quick. It's definitely worth a look because I'm not going to go in and explain Facebook to everybody. People generally know what Facebook is. People have generally seen, but what we do is we go in and we create events on our Facebook page, and it's really simple to do. And we just put a nice fun picture or a video, And then we go, when we boost the event, we pick the cities. And you mentioned that we don't have cities around us. We do in fact have 3 metropolitan areas around Clinton Lake. We have the Bloomington Normal area, Champaign-Urbana area, and Decatur area. And what we can do is we can target people with whichever demographic we choose in those areas and the miles surrounding them. So that's what I will do. You can see here sorry about that. The market size of people 30 to 60 years old, which is the demographic that I like to hit because they can afford to buy sailboats, is 30 to 60. And there's 110,000 prospects out there that I'm going to hit. And then I can determine how many days I want the ad to run for, how much I want to spend per day, how much I want to spend total, what the estimated reach is going to be per day. And then you just hit a button, and then people start calling. And it's surprisingly been that simple. And there's no trick. It's just about getting the word out there, showing pictures of people having fun. Hey, look at that little guy. And just getting the word out. And we've just had a tremendous success with it.
This is our little sailor, William. William, say hi to everybody.
Hi, guys.
He just woke up from his nap. And while we're introducing William, Carrie, if you want to introduce our other panelists that can chime in here, people with success in their own stories and their own fleets. Obviously, there's a lot of fleets out there. I think over 100 active fleets. And so we can't bring in 100 fleet captains or 100 people with experience building fleets. We couldn't hit them all, but we asked a few to join us. I don't know if they're on the call.
Yes. So we have Diane Camp with us, who is our, and Greg. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see Greg's hand. Who's our fearless leader in all things FSSA and Facebook. So I'm sure all of you know Diane and Greg, and they have a fantastic fleet that they maintain and grow, and they just recently got their new boat and put Eric's program into place and sold their boat within their fleet. So that's awesome. And then from the great state of Texas, and probably what is our largest, I'm fairly certain, Flying Scott fleet, we have Michael and Greta Mittman and Robert and Nina Cummings, who can definitely share a lot of insight on how to make a place that might be far to go for a lot of us a lot of fun and always wanting to come back for more. And then we also have Mark Gruber, who I know Tyler mentioned earlier, but for those of you who hadn't made it on, he had an article in Scots and Water not so long ago about the unique way that he's building a fleet, and also focused around the fun. So we will open it up to our panelists, and if y'all have anything you'd like to add or thoughts to bring to the conversation, we would certainly love that.
Thanks, Carrie.
Hey, Michael.
Eric, great job. So welcome and good to talk to everybody from Texas. One of the things, actually several things that we look at, because we get to cheat a little bit. Sorry, Eric, being in the middle of the Dallas Metroplex, DFW is about 7.2 million people, and White Rock Lake, with the club starting in 1939, and then the fleet a number of years after that, is one of the largest with well over 80 boats on the lake. We can only get everybody to join up. Say would be even more thrilled. So for us, we've got lots of opportunity for people to sail us, getting to come here. So things that Eric talked about, we incorporate components of that, but also really important on top of having an active, regular weekly club racing program where we tracked anywhere from on average 10 to 20 boats on the line just for the Sunday club fun races, is social and engagement with the different members. So how do you do that? One is accessibility. So how do you make it so if somebody comes by the club, contacts the club at large or a fleet member, you make it easy for somebody to get on the boat. So we leverage the Sunday club racing in that we're lucky we can come in to the club between the two races that we run. So now you have the opportunity for people to come in and say hi before races start, when everybody's rigging, socialize, introduce them to the different fleet members and the boat itself. Then when you come in, folks that are around White Rock Lake Park see those gorgeous sailboats, the Flying Scots, were out in numbers. and they can zip by the club and say, hey, what's going on? And we've done everything from just, hey, let's hop out for a quick ride to, it was kind of crazy. We actually had one guy come up and said, what are you doing, a regatta? No, it's a club race. He said, oh man, I remember that from college. I want one. And he bought the boat right there, a brand new one. So that was kind of fun. And he had been around the club for years as well. So there's the accessibility component. Then have things for social. And I'm sure you find this from traveling to the Flying Scout regattas, whether it's a local, regional, or national regatta. Social is really important. You get to meet people, you get to have fun, you get to raise a glass, and after yelling at your friends on the water, just kind of chat about it and smile. And maybe learn something too. So we make sure to have plenty of events planned, not only with the club racing where the bar is your cooler, but also scheduled events at the club to maybe those non-racers or people that are a little more borderline have the chance to come and engage with the fleet. And likewise, you for those prospective new members, that they might not come back that next week or that next day, but they're not going to forget about you and they'll come back. And we got a great example of that in that some of the folks that were in the adult sailing education program that I'll talk about in brief, they were in college or about out of college, didn't have any money or anything. And then years later, they are done. They moved back to Dallas, maybe had a career for a few years. They remembered everything that people did to be invitational and friendly and open and just do whatever it takes to, hey, let's just go sailing. Let's have fun. And they came back and they joined and bought their own boat. So there's that aspect too. Last would be education. So Eric touched on that in some dynamics, but our club, the predominant boat used for adult sailing education is the Flying Scot. So that's a program, there's a nominal fee, and the reason we charge a nominal fee is because we found if we give it away, people don't show up.
And the people have to be at least associate members. They have to sign up as an associate member of the club to gain access to the adult sailing classes and all. That's one of the things we require for people wanting to know about sailing. It's like $250 a year or something. So
very affordable.
Yeah.
It's 20-something bucks a year. So the adult education program a month when you amortize it out. Excuse me. Harry and Greta tell cover that. Thank goodness, right, Tyler?
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah. But regardless, there's the sailing education. Also, and Greta can attest to the national, regional, local events specific for women. Sometimes it's good for us guys just get off the boat and let the women have fun at a different thought level sometimes that's really important that we just take for granted as guys. So have that dynamic there that whenever you can involve women, coaching and bringing women on board, do that. Make ourselves available, but sometimes it's best to step away and just listen, right? So also the other leg is we're fortunate that Greta, as the director for several years over the juniors program, that the Scot will be inserted into a couple of components of the sailing education program for the kids. Now these kids, having been on opties and lasers and stuff like that, they get on Scot and all of a sudden they're big dogs. They're on the big boats. And fortunately, sometimes it's hard to get them off the Scot back to where they belong. But that's a good thing, right? They're really wanting to get introduced. And all of a sudden you have this thrill of a planing hull that they can manage and they can compete in and have fun in without being overwhelmed. And that's another stepping stone. So all these components of accessibility, social, and education come together to help bring people in. We're lucky that we're in the middle of a large metroplex, so we have the pool of people, but helping to reach them and giving them opportunity to engage at the level that they can, because we're competing on time for lots of other activities. That's really the hard part. So that's what I wanted to share. And I'll turn it over to Greta quickly. I don't know if there are any questions in the interim, but wanted to make sure because Greta is deeply involved in Women on Water and some other things as well.
So as Michael was saying, we have started, it's been several years now, Women on Water, which is just targeting women sailing. And we have divided it up into two components. There's the social sailing, where they just want to go out and kind of tool around and drink wine. And then there's the actual racing, which we have quite a bit of people interested in that. And we do that on Flying Scots, as well as single-handed boats, butterflies, and lasers. But that's a good way to get women involved. And, you know, a lot of times people, especially the Flying Scots, couples, they buy a Flying Scot together. And it's usually one or the other kind of takes control of the boat. And what we have found in the adult sailing classes and all, we actually split up, try to split up couples because one will always concede to the other. Well, they just need to know how to do that. It's like, no, everybody needs to know how to do this because you might have to go back for that person. And so with Women on Water, it gives us the ability to kind of take sailing to the next level for women. And it's really neat. I mean, Nina, Bowman, a lot of the women that are now competing in the women's nationals and stuff, they've been doing Women on Water for the last couple of years. Bowman's actually headed it up for multiple years. And it's just nice to see that that's grown to the fact that I think we have close to probably around 20 women at any given time involved in the program. So, and we run that from basically May through September or October, you know, once a week or once every 2 weeks, we try to do an event where it's just focusing on something specific in regards to boat handling, mark roundings for the racing ones, or just going out and, you know, sailing up and down the lake, just getting time on the boat for the social people.
That is very cool. Sounds like a ton of fun.
It is.
We always enjoy being in Dallas. You guys do a great venue, and you know, because of the people, especially.
Well, we have a tendency to run people off on the water, so we have to be nice on the shore.
I love it. I love it.
They come back though the next week. That was part of the fun that we get to talk about. While you guys are still up, and then any of the other panelists want to chime in as well, we have a good question from Jamie asking if you are at a club where you might have a learn to sail program that incorporates other boats, you know, for their adult education program, then how do you kind of introduce or encourage the Scot as a companion to that if it's not the premier boat?
Rotate.
Yeah, at the club at CSC, we will rotate. There's usually another, like a Corinthian or a Snipe that might also show up to do the sailing education program because it's all volunteers. And so we kind of try to rotate people through the different boats just so everybody gets a different opinion of them. But, you know, the Scot is so easy to sail and it's so stable and forgiving. Here in Texas, we use them for the Special Olympics events. So it's just, if you get someone on the Flying Scot that's kind of in charge of your program and let them see how easy it is to handle and use, it's usually a good way to sell it.
The thing is, be open, and the things we talk about with social and friendliness, that's what will win the folks over to the boat. The boat itself will sell itself as long as you just get people on it, but your smiling faces and willingness to help are a great thing. We actually encourage folks to try other boats. Personally, I've sailed lots of boats and competed in them nationally, and it only makes me a better sailor.
Right, absolutely.
But, you know, the Scot, it meets the middle of the road for everything you want to do. And doggone it, you don't have to fix stuff all the time. They're awesome boats. Rotate people through the boat. Encourage them to sail. Be friendly and open. Lots of opportunity to come back to the Scot and help them out. That's how folks will introduce to sailing first, and then, of course, the Scot first and first. Good question.
Thank you. And Diane, do you have anything? I know at Massapog, you guys have a lot of different boats that you all sail. Do you have any thoughts to add to anything, or any?
Yeah, I could add a couple of things. I mean, Michael and Greta did a great job of talking about most of the things that we do, as well as, you know, get people into the boats. But Greg and I do something that's a little unusual. We just keep buying new boats and getting somebody to buy our old boat. It works really well for all of us. But one of the things we did was we got a boat through the Flying Scot Foundation. The Flying Scot Foundation paid for half of the boat. We had to put in a bid for it, or a request for a grant. But anyway, they paid for half the boat, And we brought that club boat in, and it allowed people to use the Flying Scot that had never sailed one before. And we didn't have to worry about somebody going out in our brand new boat or trying to find people who were willing to allow their boats to be used, because we have a club boat. And we're a really small club. Our lake is 1.5 miles long and 3/4 of a mile wide, so it's not really that big. You know, so we don't have a lot of space, and we don't, and so we have to encourage people to come somehow and believe in us, even though we're a small club. And again, one of the things we did was we got a club boat, and we used that club boat in our adult sailing instruction. And the people actually fight over it when it's time for our adult sailing, because we have a couple of other boats that are not Flying Scots, and people prefer to sail in the Flying Scot. So that's kind of neat. Someone mentioned, I think it was Eric earlier, traveling. So there are three couples at our club, the Sharps, the Eckharts, and us, that travel quite a bit. And then Gary Worden, who's also a member of our club, travels. And for years, a group of our fleet traveled. And I think that encouraged people to get more involved as well. So, and we do a lot of social events. We do an open house every year for prospective members, and we try to mentor people as they come into the club. And I try not to push really hard on people to buy a Flying Scot, but I do tell them what some of the benefits to having a Flying Scot are. Like, it's a stable boat, easy to use, easy to maintain. I don't know if anybody has any questions or.
I think right now everybody's hitting all the answering them as we go. So right now we're in pretty good shape. Mark, if I can get you to kind of chime in and kind of tell the story on how you have built up your fleet with the I know selling the fun factor really hard, and kind of share your experiences. Do we have you? Did we lose Mark? Maybe I have to, let me see. Is he? Oh, there we go. Okay, great.
By the way, everything I've heard so far has given me some great ideas to expand our fleet, and they're excellent ideas. Our club is very expensive and kind of exclusive and aging. And for the life of me, we only have 2 Scots. And a lot of the other sailors prefer like Catalina 22s, something that's easier for someone older to sail, although I think a Scot is easier than a Catalina. But in any event, so I couldn't get participants or boats. And so I figured, well, I'll use the existing other sailors and sort of have a mixed fleet with the Scots and the other boats. And if you ever try to figure out the Portsmouth handicapping system, it's like virtually, you have to be like Einstein. So I created a handicapping system where essentially it's like a golf handicap, where so the Scots, the Sunfishes, the Catalinas, whoever wanted to sail would get together and sail, and I would have a handicapping system where everybody, I took the average of their finishes, and then each race, depends what percentage they did better than their average, rank them as a winner or a loser. And so you're not competing against everybody else, you're competing against your own time. So the people would pass the starting buoy, time themselves, and then time when they finish, turn the scores in. So I call it stress-free. And I found people from all over the club wanting to get on the boats, because it wasn't like this racing that's, shouting at each other and, the stress of competition. So it seemed to be working. I would like to convert the club to a lot of Scots. And I'm going to take a lot of what everyone has said here into heart and see if I can't develop. I love the idea of getting a club boat.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Mark, and Diane. This, as you were speaking, a question popped up with that club ownership. of the club boat, how do you guys handle the insurance for that club boat?
Okay, this is Diane. We actually have the Burgie program from U.S. Sailing and Gowery Group. And so we're covered for people using our club boat. And we're actually covered for people using other people's personal boats as well. That's something that Eric was discussing earlier. So when we, for example, last year when we did the women's nationals, I called the insurance company and made sure that we were covered for anything that might happen, you know, while we were running this national event, because almost everybody who came, and thank goodness we had 5 teams from Texas came to the women's NAC, were borrowing boats, and so we wanted to make sure we were covered. So that's what we do. We have the Burgie program. I don't know if that covers everything, Eric. It seemed that we were all set.
Yeah, if you're sailing somebody else's boat, it's covered. If you're sailing your own boat and an incident happens, it's not covered.
Right.
And that's the big hang up, because most people don't think about that when they go out and offer themselves and their boat for a learn to sail program. They're sailing on their own boat. You just don't think about swapping boats for the sake of swapping boats. So it's a dual workaround. The other thing I'd like to add is what I really found that I probably should have touched upon is, I don't know if anyone's been to the Glow. If not, you've heard about it. It is a lot of fun. We're talking about fun and showing people a good time, showing people a friendly crowd. The Glow is where it's at, just like every other regatta on Flying Scott circuit. They're all beautiful and fun. But what we do is we make our boats available to people who sail other boats in our club. And that has been a huge attraction for us. There's a lot of people in our club who started on one boat, sold that, and bought a Flying Scott, or own their cabin boat and started sailing with us on Wednesday nights, or we'd make our boats available at the Glow, and then they'd say, "Oh, I want to keep doing this." So keep that in mind. Just inviting them to participate in our regattas, our club activities has been it's low-hanging fruit. I mean, look at our class and look at our fleets. I mean, we have 2 young people here talking to us. We're going to be doing this for the next 20 years and are putting boats out, and there's a future here that we can continue to have fun, and people see that they want to go to where people are having fun and having a good time, and where there's going to be a good time 5-10 years from now. So I think people will see that.
30-40 years, yeah. I think
I haven't talked to William yet. We'll have to ask him.
We announced our retirement during the 60th anniversary. We said 40 years from now, I'll be 70. We'll still be doing this, and the company will be 100 years old. So that's my retirement date. So a ton of fun.
Tyler, I'm sorry to interject. Mark made me think of something that's really helped a lot at our fleet, and that's we're a little heavy on the national champions at our club, so the top winners in our club races gets a little loaded, if you know what I mean. So some folks came up with a new scoring system, and Mark made me think of that. So we have now the championship fleet for Sunday club races, Challenger, and non-Spinnaker, and especially the folks who are new, or you've got a couple, and those 2 folks, one's like, "Man, I don't know about this racing thing." "Oh, it'll be fun. Come on out. We'll do the non-Spinnaker fleet." So now you got those 3 options, and it's helped a lot.
That is a great point, Michael. And actually, along those lines, here at Deep Creek, we kind of did something as well, to kind of encourage. We used to just have the 2 fleets, and it was hard to want to get people to kind of jump to the next fleet, because they're like, "Oh, the same people are always winning, and it's really just not that fun." And so what we do is we actually divide our championship fleet into gold and silver. And so what that does is everybody starts together, so they get the benefit of starting with the good guys and duking it out, but the scoring is scored as 2 separate fleets. So even if you finish, mid-fleet in that championship fleet, you might be winning the silver division. And so that really has helped encourage some of the sailors to kind of make that jump from the challenge here to the championship.
That's brilliant. Same here.
So the question that I'll, more or less, and we'll continue to answer questions as long as they come in. Why not? But I want to ask our panel here and Eric as well about how they encourage Flying Scott Sailing Association membership amongst their fleet. As they, you know, Eric mentioned maybe loaning out a boat for a regatta and whatever gets people in the boats, you know, and obviously Eric's very particular about not loaning boats out long term. But what do you guys do to get people to join the class and or make sure they join the class before sailing in a national or sailing in a sanctioned regatta?
Well, this is Diane. I can tell you that for our regattas at our club, we require membership in the association if you're a Flying Scott sailor and you want to sail in our regatta. So that's one thing that we do. But I actually talk to each person individually that joins our club with a Flying Scott, and I talk to them about how membership in the association keeps the value of the boat high. It allows you to have all kinds of resources available to you because we have I mean, not to tout the website or anything, but the website does give you a lot of information and access to Flying Scott Incorporated as well. Not that you wouldn't have that if you weren't a member of the association, but it really helps having all of your friends be a part of an organization that you're a part of. So very few of the people at our club that have Flying Scots are not members of the association. And actually, the last one that wasn't a member just quit the club and he's selling his boat. So I'm hoping whoever buys his boat joins our club and joins the association. So the other thing is we have 2 officers of the association in our club, and that doesn't hurt encouraging people to join because the resources are so easily available to them. And I had one person say to me one time, it was interesting, why buy the farm when you can get the milk for free? In other words, you know, I can go to the website, I can call Flying Scott Inc. and buy parts, I can do whatever I want. I said, without the association, you wouldn't have that website. And without the association, Flying Scott Inc. might not be in as good shape as it is. So that made them join, which was interesting because it was a pretty big holdout. So I don't know if that helps anybody, that information, or.
And so how do you see for regattas, how do you find out if they're a member?
Well, I have pretty easy access to,
Okay, tell me.
to the database to look at it. And actually very soon, I don't know how many people know this, but there are 2 databases right now, one on the website and one that our management company keeps. We're combining the databases so we no longer have a mismatch between them. And we're going to make it so any regatta chairperson, we can give them access to the database and look up a person and see if they're a member. So that's how I do it. I have access.
Very, very helpful. Thank you,
That's
Diane.
awesome. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we're kind of at an hour, and I know everybody, probably doesn't have places to go right now, but may have other things they want to do with their day. So I was just going to open it up to all our panelists and see if you have any other parting thoughts, words of wisdom. We have no more questions have come through. So just before we sign off here, Eric, you have any final things you wanted to?
Just make fleet building fun. It's about getting together and having fun. Our social on a Wednesday night is bringing chips and enjoying cold beverages together and hanging out. And arguably that is just as much fun, if not more, than the actual sailing itself. So we really do focus on the coming together and getting to know each other. So Michael and Greta do point that out. And by the way, Texas is about the best you can get when it comes to camaraderie and welcoming and that type of stuff. So I can understand why
there's a question on the chat.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a question on the chat.
Yeah, just make it about fun. The fleet development portion of it isn't work. It's about having fun with friends and sharing your passion with others. And just don't forget that when it starts to seem overwhelming or not go as perfectly as planned, it's just about going out there and having fun with other sailors. So just keep it simple.
Thank you, thank you. And Deb just chimed in, the great Deb Aronson that Eric
Yeah.
was referring to earlier, and she is mentioning that at CLSA they have no fleet membership fee, and so they ask that regular sailors join the FSSA, which I think is a very unique and cool way to do that, as a way to show how much they enjoy their Wednesday night racing. So great idea, Deb. Thank you for chiming in with that. We appreciate it. And Michael and Greta, any parting thoughts?
Be social.
Yeah, be social.
And Texas does that better than anybody. I know that we always check our calendar for how we get down to this to the Texas regattas. So
Y'all come on down.
absolutely.
Carrie?
Yes, Diane.
Carrie, someone asked along the way here on the chat how we insure our boats for liability. We buy liability insurance on each and every one of our club boats, not just our Flying Scot, all of our club boats. We have a laser and a Sunfish and motorboats. We have liability insurance on all of them. So that's how we're covered. Whoever asked that question.
Brilliant.
Thank you for catching that
Better
one
safe
for me.
than sorry.
All right. Well, we really appreciate everybody taking the time. A huge thank you to our panelists and to Eric for sharing his wisdom. Obviously, I think somebody early on was like, "Oh, I wonder why Tyler and Carrie are so interested in fleet growth," right? But for us, truly, it is such a labor of love. And I think Michael and Greta, Diane, Eric, everybody hit on it. Mark, you all, the main thing about Flying Scots is the people. We hear it over and over and over again. And when we're at a boat show talking about the boat, most of the time I'm talking more about people than I am the boat, because I can guarantee them that no matter where they show up, if there is a Flying Scot fleet, they will find kind, excited people that are happy to see them, happy to share their knowledge. And I do think that is the absolute critical component that the Flying Scot has, that allows her to continue to compete in the market as a boat. And I think it's what makes our association so strong. So thank you from the bottom of our heart to all of you out there who are those friendly, smiling faces who put on such amazing events that keep people coming back for more. And we did record this, and we will have it available so that people can continue to get these awesome tips from all of our panelists. So we thank you. We stay safe, everybody. Stay well. And